Like, did everything just taste purple for a second? Because brain not braining is a lot. Because otherwise I would not be here anymore if I didn't know how to laugh at terrible things. New hair, who dis? I have no sense of time anymore. Welcome to my channel, We the Foxen. My name is Tabitha, and I know I haven't done this in 2 weeks. I did upload a TBR last week for April, in the second week of April. I have no sense of time anymore. And I put myself up to read 19 books, which I'm going to get into. So I didn't update on what I was doing in the last 2 weeks for reading. So there's a bit. I currently finished. So I was sick last week also. I lost my voice just after filming the Audible chose my TBR video, and just feeling like crap ever since. I still kind of feel like crap. I am actually really winded doing nothing. Joy. So let's get into what I have finished. I didn't do too much. It's been like two weeks. Could have gotten through a lot more, but if I had been feeling well. Did not. So let's start with, I did The Cabinet, listened to it. So The Cabinet by Kim Eun-soo. And it is about a mysterious Cabinet 13 in this office complex. I think some sort of pseudo-government corporation thing. And this guy is tasked with looking after it. And it starts out kind of fun. Like, it's little stories about the people that are cataloged in this cabinet, their strange abilities, their strange experiences. One guy keeps calling in saying, I want to be turned into a cat. It's silly. And then it just gets really weird in a, I think, culturally lost way. And I think I felt the same way almost when I was reading It Came from the North, some Finnish short story, like speculative fiction short stories, that there's something lost in the translation, like in the transcribing of culture, something is lost. And it kind of turned into this weird really strange, like almost spy espionage type thing. A little bit like The Department for Sensitive Crimes by I don't remember who. I think it was a Danish author. Just quirky and weird and strange, and not saying that it's bad, but it's not entirely for me. So have a look at that. If you find the premise to be interesting, go right ahead. Not saying that it's bad. It just wasn't quite my cup of tea. Now, onto the physical books that I've had. I had 2 holdovers from March that came through my library's holds that I really wanted to finally get to, and that really pushed my April TBR back. But I read them, and they were so good. So first was The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. As this book is like not quite like anything that I've read before. Obviously there's a like a Norse element of the inspiration for the world that's created. And I found it really fun. Not necessarily fun, because it's not fun for the characters, obviously. Like, there's this whole subspecies of people who are God-touched and they have the abilities of whatever god they are sprung from the lineage of. So there's a lot about persecution, a lot about being hiding your true identity and all that in there. And then the god that is brought back to life, like all the gods are dead. They were dead in a war like 200-300 years ago amongst themselves, and one was imprisoned underground. And spoilers, they get released at the end. Like, this is the first in, I think, a trilogy. So yeah, and that's the dragon that you see there. So I'm foggy brained to begin with, and I'm all thick in the head from this cold, so I'm not going to be explaining things well. I just want to get it out. But I really, really enjoy Shadow of the Gods and really want to go through Hunger of the Gods eventually. So that was a buy. The next one that was a holdover from March was The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Billman. And as I've explained before, is that I have been pretty much solely doing immersive reading because my attention span has been so shot by whatever physical, like medical thing that I am dealing with and trying to find a name for, that I can't actually really sit down and read for too long because my attention wanders. So reading the audio along with the physical really has been helping me. The author does the narration for this, I believe, and it's really funny. Really strange, like, cultural differentiations even within the same country, and like tribalism and whatnot. And then there's really odd magic, and the main character actually does have a black tongue, and that's how the people from his area are distinguished. A really interesting thing with, like, you get branded by your debt on your face, and like everyone knows what that means. So like this guy, he has a hand on his face, so everyone gets to hit him if they claim it. It's weird. And then there's a cat that's carrying an assassin around in their head, and it's just really, it's funny. It's funny, and it's really inventive, and it's grimdark without being so grimdark, right? Like, there's heavy stakes, there's things that go wrong, people die, but still there's a sense of humor. And that's how I live my life, because otherwise I would not be here anymore if I didn't know how to laugh at terrible things. So those are the holdovers. So now we're getting to what my whole idea of Audible choosing my TBR. And for those who didn't see that video, go watch it. I like it. I'm proud of it. I did it. It's my idea. Whatever. So for those of you who didn't watch it, because of my whole inattentive thing going on, there's a bunch of audiobooks on Audible that I have collected either through credits, or they're on the Plus catalog. So they come with the membership. And I actually had a whole lot. I had like 19 books of audio that I had physical copies for. So we're going to start with the nonfiction. I read The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. I mean, I can see why this was so influential, had such an uproar when it was published, because anyway, it's a guy talking about his trips, like tripping on, what was it? But it wasn't LSD. It was something. I don't even remember anymore. So much brain. Anyway, he was on drugs. He hallucinated, and he was talking about his experiences, and also like what the perceptions are of it and all that. And at the time, like, this would have been one of the only books where this was a thing. People talking about how it can help. And I think that the electric Kool-Aid test would have been a follow-up. And then the whole war on drugs and people banning stuff and all that crap. But a more modern take, I would think, would be How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. Mike Pollan, it's the guy who wrote The Omnivore's Dilemma, I think. Anyway, picture here. That's also an amazing book. So he references this, and then he goes and tries all the drugs and talks to all the experts and goes through all the history and everything. So this isn't as hard-hitting anymore because of where we are now. But, you know, it's a thing. It's off the bucket list now. Next thing was Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. To be honest, I'm going to have to read this again just to get my head around it, because I can see, like, he's supposed to be the father of nihilism, but even he seems to refute that in this. And, like, he has a bunch of thoughts about women, which are very unflattering. However, he, in his life, like, I looked up in his life, like, he was surrounded by very smart women, and I don't know if it was his socialization or just the whatever happened to him where he had these thoughts about how women should act, that women are losing their femininity, becoming too masculine, their femininity is what makes them better than us and all that. And, like, okay, dude, calm down. However, he did have there were some things where he was really against nationalism and, like, the rise of nationalism, which was interesting, considering he's German, and, like, when this was written, like, the 30s. Nope. It's strange to say that he was against nationalism, but he was also very proud of being German, but also hated Germans. It is a lot. This book isn't even written in any sort of cogent way. It is a lot of almost like mind mapping, and like someone took their notes app and made it into a book. Just like thoughts put down on a page and kind of assembled in a way. But there's no real cogent like through line, really. A little bit of, like, I guess the through line is supposed to be like exploring morals and how the idea of good and evil can be precluded from the idea of morals, because morals don't necessarily have to have a polarity. Like I said, I need to read it again, but not anytime soon, because not braining. So yeah, they're frickin' Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche, frickin'. Okay, sorry. Next one was a lot more easier to understand, and that was Provenance. I'm going to read the whole title: Provenance, How a Conman and a Forger Rewrote the History of Modern Art, by Lainey Salisbury and Ali Sujo. Now, this book was a really fun, like, true crime sort of read. It was well researched. They actually spoke to the man who was the forger for a lot of their information. The con man was being a narcissist and didn't really want to talk to them. And that's one thing that I read in the comments of this book, is that it seems to favor the forger and make it seem like he was a dupe for some of the alleged con that took years. But it still didn't take away from my enjoyment of the book. Now, it may be a little bit biased, I think there is another book that may have come out later than this one, that focuses a little bit more on the con man. I don't remember anyone's names. I'm sorry. But this book was super fun. So what it's about is a super charming, probably sociopathic narcissist, from how his behavior and his descriptions and how everyone describes him and what he did, meets an artist who is doing, he had put out a ad saying that he can do commissions in styles. Just ask. So like in the style of Van Gogh or in the style of Rubens or like whatever. And so the con man contacts him and asks him to make some stuff by certain artists. And he does it. And then, unbeknownst to him, allegedly, he gets taken in to make more and more forgeries that are being sold to collectors, to galleries, to museums, as originals. And like the Tate Museum plays a huge role in this in London. And I didn't even say that, this takes place in England. And it went on for like almost 10 years, I think, where they eventually, obviously, the forger, he realizes what's going on. And he's in too deep. And then he actually gets scared by the con man and says, I'm out. And by that point, the authorities know that something is up. Something's going on. And eventually they both get caught. They both go to jail. I think the con man is still in jail. I think he'll be in jail for the rest of his life. And the artist, the forger, he is now out, and he has been making a living now doing genuine fakes. It's funny that he's now getting paid to do the thing that he was doing before illegally. Yeah, but it was a really good read. It was quick. At no point did I feel bored, like there was a lull in the story. Like it explains everyone's history, and what happened and everyone who was involved. And like I said, it was well researched. They interviewed quite a few people, so primary sources. It was really good. So I think if you're into either art history, the history of the gallery scene in the, was it late 80s, early 90s, or just like true crime but don't want anything really bloody, read Provenance. That was really good. Okay, so that was all the nonfiction and the catch-up stuff. And the last two books that I have finished, I read Adoru by William Gibson. I love this book. It was so good. I'd only ever read Neuromancer. And Neuromancer, for anyone who has ever read it, is a trip. I don't know too many people who really know 100% really what's going on. And it is one of the progenitors of cyberpunk, because it's all about like hackers and like weird sex and violence and technology, and just it's bizarre. And it comes that's where the joke from Futurama, like, did everything just taste purple for a second, like that comes from Neuromancer. And I liked it and I enjoyed it. Can't say that I understand most of it, but I enjoyed it. But this Adoru was so much easier to understand, and you jump into the story. There's very little preamble. It's just like, these are the people, this is what we're doing, and go. So there's two main perspectives. There is a computer analyst type guy who, because of drug experiments on him when he was in an orphanage as a kid, he sees what he calls nodal points in electronic information. And so he can find out things almost holistically by going through the internet, essentially. Like, this is set, I think, in a distant future, but not too distant future. So there's that guy, and he has been contracted by members of a team who are pretty much like handlers and various other employees of a rock star who is in love with a aidoru, which is Japanese for electronic pop idol. So an AI singer, and they have a relationship. At least that's what the rumors are. Second perspective is a 13, 14-year-old girl from Seattle who has flown to Japan, where this all takes place, in Tokyo, to meet up with local fan club of this rock star, the physical guy, and see if the rumors are true about him being in a relationship with this aidoru. And it is just, there is corporate espionage, thing about being chased by the tabloids and how they will find out anything and ruin anybody for money. There's the idea, like, this was, I think, written in 96, and there's the idea where there's a side plot briefly about a girl who wants to break into acting, like legitimate like acting, and to do that she is releasing a sex tape. And I think like 96, this is before that was really a thing, like with Paris Hilton, especially Kim Kardashian. Like, they did that crap on purpose. That's what they built their brands on top of. So that was an interesting predictive point. But apparently the thing I didn't even know about is that there is like an AI pop star right now on like YouTube that I didn't even know about, and I read in the comments on Goodreads about this book. So like, this isn't really all that far-fetched anymore. So it was really cool, and like the idea about identity and how we interact with each other, and what is a legitimate relationship, all that. It was just really cool. It was a really good book. So I suggest reading Aidoru by William Gibson. And the last book that I finished was Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. Another one that just jumps right in and doesn't let you go until the end. This is so good. And it's one of those stories where you think you know what's going on, and then another piece of information is given to you, and you're like, this changes everything. And then another piece of information is given to you, and like, again, this changes everything. And just like, it keeps giving you tiny pieces to the puzzle that you eventually see it all. And you're like, wow. So it really is. Okay, so this girl, Jess, she has gone back to Malaysia with her family. Her grandmother died like a year ago in Malaysia. Jess was raised in the US, so she's now back in Malaysia. She is closeted. She's a lesbian, but her family doesn't know. Her girlfriend is in Singapore going to college. She is in Penang. I'm not going to pronounce that correctly. Anyway. And she starts hearing this voice, ends up being her grandmother, who's dead. And it just goes on from there. So dealing with the generational trauma of our ancestors, and the choices that they made, the choices that gods have made. It goes in a lot about the indigenous spiritual ideologies, mythology of Malaysia, how there are earth spirits and guardian spirits and vengeful spirits, and they all kind of they become gods in a way. Like the Monkey King plays a role for a brief moment. The Blackwater Sister is a vengeful spirit. of a woman who, a little bit like La Llorona, but not to do with killing children. It's more like she was killed. So it's hard to explain without giving away too much, but it does go through generational trauma, and what secrets can do to a family and how they can be harmful. How secrets can be harmful for the community, and just culture in general. And it is expressed that way through various mediums, Jess being one of them, who channel ghosts and gods, and various things that happen that way. I'm not going to say much more because that would be that would be spoiling the breadcrumb sort of plot pacing of this book. But yeah, I really suggest Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. Definitely be reading more by that author. Now, what I'm currently reading, I did start reading Mary Queen of Scots by Antonia Fraser. I did, again, this is another example as to how little attention I can pay to anything, is that apparently the only copy of the audiobook on Audible is abridged. I did not know that. So I got about 25% in and realized, wait, that's not what's going on here. So now I'm actually going to have to try and plod through this book. So I might not talk about this book a lot in the future because I'm going to be going through it very, very slowly. Because I'm going to have to read it without the audiobook, and that's not going to be fun for my holy brain right now. There's that. But another one that I'm really excited about, this one is so good, is The Prey of Gods by Nikki Drayden. Now, when I did my Audible book, like, this is described as fantasy, but I was confused and I put it in the fantasy category for my TBR video, but there was a robot. There's a robot on the cover, but that's only because there's advanced technology and robotics and whatnot in the future that is this set in this book. But it is definitely, I think, first and foremost fantasy, because there are gods and people with wings and magic and whatnot. So that's where I started. I'm almost a quarter through. I think I'm like 21% through. But it's already, like, it's really grabbing my attention. Like, it's not, the last couple books that I've read have been, they just kind of plop you down into the scenario and go, like, very little preamble, very little exposition. It just kind of gives you information as you go along, and like, you're going to tell me, like, that's what narrative is, that's what plot is, but I can't explain it very well because brain, I got the dumb. But there's a specific way that this is done where, like, it's not info dumpy, which some books can be, especially when you're creating a whole world to explain, like, certain things. They can be very info dumpy, but these have been very immersive. Maybe I can explain it that way, as that you're dumped in, you're given very little information up front, and you're just given what you need to know as the story goes on, and it just builds on top of itself. That's what, like, the last 3 books I've read have been, and especially, like, The Prey of Gods is leading me to believe that it is like Blackwater Sister in that respect, that it just keeps putting another layer on top and another layer on top, and eventually you'll see the whole picture, but you don't see it all to start. Like, you don't have all the information. You don't have a lot of information at the beginning. And they talk about dicks in these, and they're such adorable little creatures. For anyone, I'll put a picture right there of a dick. They're so cute. But apparently they're a huge pest in South Africa, in this futuristic setting. and there's a huge overpopulation of them. So we'll see where that goes with that book. As to what I plan on doing in the future, I only have like a week left of April, and I have, see these two stacks right there of books for my April TBR, which is probably, I'm just gonna go right into May. That's just what's gonna happen. But it's probably gonna be one of these 3 books, and I'll do next. So like 5 Unicorn Flesh by TJ Barry, weird fantasy sci-fi, The Fallen by Ada Hoffman, second in the series, cosmic horror, sci-fi weirdness, Prime Deception, Valerie Valdez, silly, slice of life, very human sci-fi. And in saying that, I'm not saying like it's solely humans. I'm saying like there's lots of aliens, but it doesn't shy away from showing faults of people. That's what I mean by very human. But that is what I have been doing and plan to do in the next week. Definitely not going to get through the 10 books that I have left on my TBR. I knew that was going to fail, but whatever. It is what it is. I've been enjoying the majority of what I've been reading, so that's good. So let me know if you have read any of these, what your opinion of any of these are, or if you have suggestions based on what's here. Let me know down in the comments, and like if you like the video. It really helps out my channel. Please subscribe if you are so inclined, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.